Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. Good night, everyone. So we're going to begin our meeting tonight. I invite everyone to close the eyes so we can do a prayer together. Let's take a deep breath, relaxing the body where we're seated, feeling the presence of Jesus, of our guardian angels, all the good spirits with us, involving us all tonight. As we breathe deeply, we relax our body, we let go of all the worries of today, all the anxieties, all the distress, all the tiredness, physical tiredness, mental tiredness. We let go of everything that does not belong to this moment here, so we can feel embraced to this moment, embraced by these good energies, by all the light that is being poured on us, opening up our hearts to receive the message of the gospel, to receive these new teachings from Jesus, to learn, to grow, being receptive to all the great of the divine. We thank you, dear God, for this moment, for this opportunity to be here, to be surrounded by so much light, to be able to share so much light, to donate a little bit of ourselves by being here, by wishing well to all those in humanity. We hope that this lesson touch our hearts, our incarnated hearts, the discarnated hearts that are with us, bringing love, bringing light to all those that participate, that are listening to this meeting. We thank you, God. We ask that Jesus stay with us, involving us, helping us in this growth, in this moment. Thank you, God. So it is.
Thank you, Anna. Welcome, everyone, to our public meeting tonight. My name is Cara, and I'm with the Lively Soul Christian Spiritist Center. And tonight we are talking about the Gospel According to Spiritism, Chapter 16, which is you cannot serve both God and Mammon, which basically just means man. You can't serve God and man. And there are several sections in Chapter 16 that we can see here. And there will be an opportunity on tonight for anyone who wants to say anything. If at any time you have an observation or something you want to share, you can simply unmute your microphone and speak into the space. And if there's, again, any questions, you don't have to wait until the end. You can ask them at any time. We hope this will be interactive as much as you would like. Or you can also feel comfortable just to sit back and receive the energy and the information that will be shared on tonight. So in Luke 16:13, Jesus tells us, no one can serve two masters, for he will either hate one and love the other, or he will become attached to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and Mammon at the same time. And so we can see also from this image that when there's two routes, we can't be on both of them at the same time. And even the law of physics in science that's been proven, you can't, two things can't occupy the same space at the same time, nor can we have two exact thoughts at the same time. So we always have a choice and we have to choose. And so this lesson from Jesus lets us know it's not just serving God or serving man, but at any given moment, we have the choice to embrace our higher self and live from there, or our lower self and live from there. We can be selfish or we can be charitable. We can be kind or we can be unkind. We always have a choice in how we choose to show up. And so we now are told in this message here to guard ourselves against avarice, which is a kind of an older term that means an insatiable need and greed for wealth, and also jealousy of those who have it. And so this is also in Luke 12, where a dispute unfolds, and a man said to Jesus, Master, tell my brother to divide with me the inheritance that will befall us. And Jesus told him, well, who made me to judge you or decide your allotment? And before we even go any further, that's such an interesting question for Jesus to ask, because many times we judge people without ever being asked our opinion. We've been talking about this in the Saturday study as well, how quickly we as humans rush in to judge our brother or our sister, or to judge our neighbor when we're not even being asked. And in this case, Jesus even said, wait, who made me to judge you or decide your allotment? And then he added, be careful to guard yourselves against avarice, because no matter how much abundance a man or a woman may have, his or her life does not depend on the riches he or she possesses. And then he told them a parable. But before we go to the parable, this is two things that we should be thinking about here. One is that no matter how much abundance, whether it's abundance of wealth, or if it's an abundance of property, or if it's an abundance of friends, or there's many ways that wealth can show up in our lives. Our lives don't depend on that. Those physical experiences of abundance don't bring the incarnation, and they don't take it away, right? Our life does not depend on those. And it's been documented over and over that wealth itself does not bring happiness. There's something called the hedonic treadmill, and that's a school of thought that wealth doesn't bring happiness. And this idea is that, we can't possibly think that wealthy people are saying, wow, I had a great day because I've been thinking about my car and my home, and they're so much better than yours. Like, that's not how wealthy people think. They get used to what they own, just like we get used to whatever we buy very quickly. Wealthy people rarely reflect on their good fortune to allow it to boost their mood. This is called the hedonic treadmill. And there's a lot that we can learn from this, because, for example, the upper middle class, pursuing more money or a higher status doesn't make their lives any better. If they're happy now, then having a Ferrari or a swimming pool and a mansion is not really going to make any difference. But if they're miserable and already part of that upper middle class, more money and more things won't make them even happier or make them smile more. So it's not the wealth that breeds happiness, and it's not the wealth that creates the life. So what's this parable that can bring us more light on this question? The parable is of the rich man, and the parable goes like this. There was a rich man whose lands have produced extraordinarily, and he thought to himself, what shall I do, because I don't have a place where I can put everything that I've reaped from this harvest? So he said to himself, I will tear down my barn and build bigger ones, into which I can put all my harvest, and my entire harvest, and all my possessions. And I will say to my soul, you have many possessions saved up for many years, rest, eat, drink, and enjoy. But God said to the man, how foolish you are. Your soul will be taken this very night, and then who will possess what you have accumulated? And so what this initially brings for us to think about is this is what happens to those of us who accumulate wealth only for ourselves, but do not create wealth in this lifetime that allows us to be wealthy before God. And that really begs the question of true ownership, right? If he doesn't own, if he doesn't possess what he's accumulated, well, what is true ownership? What do we really own? And this slide tells us that humans only possess what they can take with them from this world. And I mean, what can we take, right? What can we really take from this world? What do we really truly possess when we say, this is mine, right? What does that even mean, right? Because we can't take with us anything that is solely for the use of the body. So if we think about all of the things, if we look around wherever you are, just take a minute and look around the environment you're in. Every single physical thing you can see is not what you're going to take with you. So you won't be taking any of the furniture. You won't be taking any of the books. You won't be taking any of the lights or the light bulbs. You won't be taking any of the clothes. I mean, if you just kind of look around your space, none of that comes with you or comes with me. Yet if we think of the inordinate amount of time that we spend buying things, cleaning things, repairing things, wanting things, saving for things, protecting things from being stolen, and making sure valuable things are insured, and I mean, we just spend an inordinate amount of physical energy on things, the things that we look around in our environment, right? And then an inordinate amount of time, nowadays, right, cleaning and sanitizing and really a lot of time thinking about things. And none of these things come with us at all. None of these things. And most of us have far more than we actually need. If you take another moment, just look around your environment and just think of 3 things. Just look around and see if you can find even 3 things, right, that you have not touched in more than a year, that you haven't touched. There's probably more, but they're still in the environment and they're still taking our energy to pay attention to them. This is good for us to think about, because all that we can take with us, all that we really possess, is those qualities that are for the use of the soul. So that's our intelligence and our knowledge and our moral qualities. And by the way, intelligence and knowledge are different. So knowledge is the data that you've accumulated. So that's the number of books you've read and the number of classes that you've taken and the number of languages that you've learned and the number of skills that you've learned. And this is the data that we've accumulated. Intelligence is knowing what to do with that information that you have learned, right? So it's like tonight, we're going to get some more knowledge, right? We're going to learn more about Gospel chapter 16. Intelligence is knowing how to take what we've learned tonight and apply it for the benefit of ourselves, for the benefit of our brothers and sisters, for the benefit of our family, for the benefit of humanity. Intelligence is taking what we know and making good use of it. And the moral qualities that we have, of course, that's our own moral inventory. That's the capacity to love and all of the virtues that go along with the law of love. But taking another minute now and looking around your environment, whether you're in your bedroom or your living room, or maybe, you're in another room in your house, maybe you're in the kitchen, taking another look around your space and think about how much time you've spent today caring for that space, and compare that to how much time you spent cultivating knowledge, cultivating intelligence, cultivating moral qualities. And is it the same? Did we spend more time on the physical things that we can see, or did we spend more time cultivating the qualities that are for the use of the soul? This is not a direct question I'm asking anyone to answer on this lecture tonight, but it's for us to think about, right? If we think about what we're going to do with the rest of our evening, right? We'll maybe be together tonight for a little less than an hour of our time together. And for many of us, there will be several hours before we go to sleep, maybe just a couple of hours. What will we do with that time? Will we spend most of it going back to the use of the things for the body? Maybe some of us will be doing food prep for tomorrow, or cleaning, or washing clothes, or doing necessary activities. It's not that these activities are bad. It's not that they are not spiritual, because we can approach the care of our physical environment from a deeply spiritual place. The point is where's the bulk of our thinking and our attention? Is it on building the qualities of the soul, or is it on increasing the number of physical things we can possess and care for? This is for us to think about, because that will tell us, right, where we have an opportunity to stretch ourselves and to evolve more from a spiritual perspective. But the only owner of earthly goods is God, right? We're just beneficiaries. We're just an administrator of the properties that have been given to us just by a temporary grant, right? Because life as we know it, that has so many intervals of reincarnations, it consists of who we are, not in what we have, right? It's who we're being human beings, not human havings, but human beings. And those of us who care to be instead of to have, we we'll take the time to value life for everything it offers by opening up to all that life has to offer, right? By living, participating, giving, contributing, receiving, and being interested in what is around us and putting our happiness in the good of life. I mean, we have material goods, or maybe we don't have material goods. That's less of a concern than, for example, what Paul of Tarsus said when he said at the end of his life, after he had been, aged and broken by the many deprivations, he said, I know how to live in abundance, and I know how to live in penury, which is like extreme poverty. And if we think about that, right, if we're an administrator of whatever we have, so take that, look around your space again, right, and think about what you've accumulated in this life in terms of material gains, and think about being an administrator or just a temporary manager of these things that are very temporary and that will remain here in the physical sphere until they wear out and expire, the same way that our physical bodies are. And then if we are called to account, just like any administrator is, right? Those of us that have administrative positions in the workplace, right? We have to give an accounting of that which we have administrative rights over. And so what kind of accounting will we be giving when we make our accounting, when we release this body? This is for us to think about. And also, not just how did we care, right, for the things that we were given temporary administrative right over. In other words, what kind of human doing were we, right? How were we doing that job? Or how were we being a human doing instead of a human being? But also, how are we being? There's some people, some of us, when we're administering, the way that we're doing it, we're being a person that's very proud and happy to lord it over and make people bow down to our administrative oversight. How are we being with that? Some of us are very humble and compassionate when we are administering to those around us. How are we being? What kind of human doing are we? What kind of human having are we? But most importantly, what kind of human being are we? Because it is who we are being that begins to unfold and provide some transparency into what we are doing with the soul. Are we being intelligent? Are we being knowledgeable? Are we being moral? We can't be the things that we possess, but we can be the qualities that we built in the soul. Everything that we possess is what we are doing and what we are having. But everything that's for the soul is what we are being while we are administering those things that we have. That's an important distinction to make. And it's a question that we can ask ourselves at any given moment, right? Who am I being right now? What qualities of the soul am I expressing right now? And as we're all quarantined together, right, there are so many opportunities to be frustrated and impatient with our loved ones, and we can continue to ask ourselves, who are we being? Who are we being with our loved ones right now? And who could I be? How could I be a kinder and more compassionate human being? These are questions we can ask ourselves. When we think about the use of wealth, the question is, what is the best use of wealth? And the answer we get is, seek in the words, love one another, the solution to this problem. So again, if we're asked, what's the best use of wealth that we have? If that's a problem, then we should seek in the words, love one another, the solution. Because therein lies the secret for the good use of riches. Those who are animated by love for their neighbor have their course of action all traced out. In other words, good deeds. But what sort of good deeds? Let's think about this question. The best use of wealth, and the answer is love one another. What if that was the answer to every question? Each one of us today probably asked ourselves at least one question, right? You know how we ask questions of ourselves internally. What should I do later today? Or what should I do with this particular problem? How should I spend the rest of my week? How should I prioritize what I need to do? So-and-so is annoyed with me. What should I do in response? I can't imagine that there's any question that you've asked yourself today whose answer wouldn't be found in these words, love one another. There's literally no question that does not have love in the answer. There's no problem on this planet, not one, that doesn't have love in the answer. In fact, there's a song by a reggae artist named Jah Cure that's called Love Is, and some of the words go, love is much more to life than just words. Love is more than choosing who you love. Love is loving your brother. Love is loving your sister. Love is the key that opens the door when you can't find your way. Love is the key that opens the door when you can't find your way. Such a beautiful song. And that, I think, if we are stuck and we have a question in our mind and we don't know what to do, sometimes we have these thorny problems that keep us up at night. We don't know which path to take. Love is the key that opens the door when you don't know your way. It unlocks the door when you can't find your way. In the words, love one another are the solution to this problem and all problems. And when it says to do good deeds, but the question is, well, what sort of good deeds? The best use of wealth, it says from Shiveris, the spirit, is to do good deeds wisely, to seek to alleviate the cause of the problem, which is really interesting because many times we try to solve the symptoms of the problem instead of solving the problem. And we don't do that just in using wealth. We do that often with ourselves, right? We have a headache, and so then we take aspirin. When the headache is a symptom of some other problem that is almost always needed to be resolved by a lifestyle change. Maybe we're not sleeping enough. Maybe maybe our diet could have some adjusting. Maybe we could make some better decisions about how much activity that we spend so that we have more time to do exercise. Or almost every time that we look at symptoms instead of cause, we simply delay the solving of the problem, and the problem itself gets worse. So this do good deeds wisely, first seek to alleviate the cause of the problem. What's so beautiful about messages from the spirits is that there's such a broad application in our lives. If we're willing to take the time to be intelligent about the use of that knowledge, right? If we go back earlier, we talked about some of the things we have for the soul are intelligence and then knowledge, right? This is knowledge, do good deeds wisely, first seek to alleviate the cause of the problem. Intelligence is realizing all of the different applications we have. I've only come up with a couple, but each one of us has our own unique intelligence that will allow us to think, well, how else could I have done this? But we only do that if we cultivate that. The second instruction from Shiveris says, then gather information to see if work or counseling or kindness would be equally or more sufficient than alms. And this is another thing that's for us to think about, right? Because sometimes, our first instinct, especially if someone is asking us for some coins, we may have a judgment about that. We may, quickly dig in our pocket and hand coins. And during this time of the pandemic, some of us, we don't want to put our hand out the car. We're worried about the virus. And we're just hesitant, many of us, to offer a word of kindness, or if we have some work or know of some work to offer that, or just to even look that person in the eye. Just look them in the eye for a moment and give them a blessing. May God bless you. Sometimes their hand is out for coins, but what they really need is love. I was joking with some of the ladies during our study on Saturday, and we're talking about how when we go to the refrigerator, those of us that are struggling with snacking a little bit too much during this pandemic, and one of the ladies in the class said, I go to the fridge, but I don't really need food. What I really want is love. I wish that there was a sign on the fridge that said, oh, honey, I love you. I appreciate you. If one of her children or if her husband put that note up there, she might be less likely to snack, because what is really needed is love. Well, our friends who are in need are no different, right? If love's the key that unlocks the door and we can't find our way, it's almost always what we need the most. And the third thing that Chabert says is, most importantly, spread all around you the love of God, the love of labor, and the love of your neighbor. And so this idea of spreading around, when we have a bad day, we don't have any problem spreading our bad day around us. We wake up and maybe not in a great mood, and our family says, "How are you this morning?" We grumble, 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 grumble. Right? We're already spreading that energy, right? Or let's say our loved one doesn't do something we wanted them to do. And then for the rest of the day, we spread our dissatisfaction with the way that our loved one chose to show up in our lives. Or maybe you wanted something and didn't get it. And so then we easily spread our disappointment around. I should have gotten this. I should have gotten that. And we spread that around, right? Maybe we're not doing it with our mind, but we're definitely doing it energetically. But what if we were just as intentional, right? You get up in the morning, you're feeling good, and you imagine, you have this jar of love and you dip your hand in it and spread it around. And what if we just did that? It's literally just as easy as making that gesture. What if we made that our intention? And spreading the love of God, spreading the love of labor, spreading the love of our neighbor. Because what we usually spread is our judging our neighbor. My neighbor is having their lawn cut again during this meeting. Our neighbor hasn't cut their lawn. Our neighbor is so loud when they take out the garbage. Our neighbor hasn't taken out the garbage in 5 years. It doesn't really matter what our neighbors do. We're ready to judge them if we're not careful, right? So think about this kind of jar of love in our own hearts that we could just reach in and just spread it around. And that when someone asks us a question, before we answer, we reach in and just spread that love around. We spread it on our words. We spread it on our actions. We spread it on our thoughts. What if we did that? What do we think would change? We can only apply that intelligent principle and see what sort of results that we get. This is up to us. We have choice. And then the last thing from Chabert is it says, spread the treasures of learning all around you. Scatter the treasures of your love over your brothers and sisters, and they will bear fruit. What a beautiful message. Because if we're spreading something else, if we're spreading our disappointment, that's going to bear fruit. If we're spreading our dissatisfaction, that's going to bear fruit. If we are spreading annoyance, that's going to bear fruit. Whatever it is that we spread is going to bring a harvest. So why would we spread the seeds of what we actually want to see grow? What if we chose from all of the seeds that we have inside of us, and we chose to plant them with love and water them with love and spread them with love all around us? How would our lives be different? Especially given that we're all basically living in this big test tube right now. We're in this kind of social and spiritual experiment of how are we going to evolve while we're all cooped up in our homes. What a perfect environment to have this spiritual experiment of, let me spread as much love as I can and see what happens. Let me scatter the treasures of learning, in other words, the intelligence of applying the knowledge that we've accumulated. See what happens. It's promised that it will bear fruit. What sort of fruit will it bear? Will we want to eat it? This is for us to find out as we think about this. I just wanted to pause and see if anyone has any questions or thoughts they wanted to share before we move on. Okay, you can feel free to unmute at any time should you have any questions. So we get more now about the use of material goods. And this says, we'll give alms when necessary, but whenever possible, convert it into a salary so that the one who receives it will not feel ashamed. And so this, in those times, that meant, offering work. And we can still do that according to our means, and according to what we can make happen given the circumstances that we have. Remembering that the bad use of material goods consists in using it solely for our personal satisfaction, right? So if we think now, we have money, do we use it to help others, or we're using it simply to satisfy, again, the needs of the body. And if we think about that previous slide of what do we actually own, right? So if we use our money only for our personal satisfaction, that means we are buying things that are either temporary, right? Really temporary, like services, right? Like maybe nails getting done or hair getting done or various services, or we're buying goods, right? We're either buying goods or services. Services are temporary. They're over when you have the service, and the goods are also temporary, regardless of how we may think that, oh, I'll have this for a long time. Goods are temporary. So those are things we can't take with us. But if we choose to use the good use, on the other hand, and all the times it results in good for someone else, or in this case, even if it's giving alms or whether it's converting it into a salary, these are now qualities of the soul. So notice now how wealth itself, while the wealth itself is not something that we own because we are administrators, as it said earlier, but how we use that wealth could also go into those two camps. We can use wealth to find and purchase things that are going to be of use of the body, which is temporary. We don't ever really own it. It goes when we leave this physical body. Or we can use it in the service of good, things that result in good for someone else. And now we are cultivating qualities of the soul that we can take with us. It is up to us again what focus we have when we are distributing the wealth we have, no matter how much wealth it is, whether it's the widow's mite and it's 1 or 2 pennies, or whether it's the rich man with $1 or $2 million. It doesn't really matter. It's what we do with it. Most importantly here, and this is why it's in bold, is that the merit in that use is in proportion to the sacrifice one imposes on oneself. And it's like that widow's mite parable, right? Where the rich man gave a big bag of money. The widow only gave 1 or 2 pennies, but the widow was seen as giving a greater gift because that was all she had. So that was a massive sacrifice that she imposed on herself. But the rich man with millions of dollars who just gives a bag of money, it looks like it's a lot of money, but he's got hundreds of those bags of money in his vault. There's no sacrifice whatsoever. He can blink and not notice it. So for us is to really think about too is to what degree am I making a sacrifice by offering this gift? Because again, it's as Fenelon tells us, the sacrifice is where the merit is. So if we're telling ourselves, oh, I'm giving 10%, or oh, I gave a few quarters, this is good, right? It's no good deed goes unrewarded. But the highest merit is when we do so in a way that creates a sacrifice for ourselves. And then we have the parable of the talents. And so this is, as you can see with the picture, right? A talent in the parable is a coin, but of course there's the spiritual message, which is our own talents. But the parable goes like this. A man called his servants and he placed his property in their hands. He gave 5 talents to one, 2 talents to another, and then 1 to another, each according to their different abilities. So the one who got 5 talents invested them. He went to do business with them, and then he earned 5 more. And the one who had 2 talents also went and did business, made investments, and received 2 more talents. But the one that only received 1 talent dug a hole in the ground, and he hid his Lord's money in the ground. So when it was time for the accounting, the ones who had doubled the gift, right? The one who had 5 got 10, the one who had 2 got 4. They were told, you good and faithful servants, since you have been good in small matters, I will entrust you with many others, so you can share in the joy of your master. But the one who had received only 1 talent said, Master, I know that you are a severe man. I was afraid of you, so I hid your talent in the ground. He dug it up and handed it to his master and said, here it is. Now, what's so interesting about this, I'm always struck by the one who only had 1 talent and how he buried it in the ground. He didn't just bury it in the ground, like he did it and had words for his master, right? He's like, I know you're a severe man. And there's some other choice language in this parable, right? I know that, basically talked about how cruel the man was. And I was afraid of you, so I hid your talent in the ground. It made me think about how, our gifts and talents, how when we hide them, because we're afraid that, we'll be made fun of, or maybe we don't share our gift because we think it's not good enough. We think it's not good enough because we don't want anyone to tease us or make us feel bad about what we're doing. And no matter what our reason is for hiding our talent or burying it, it's almost always because we are afraid of someone being severe or someone making us feel bad about it. So even though this one man looks so silly when he says this is an opportunity for us to look within ourselves. Why are we burying our talent? So the master responded to him, "You evil and lazy servant, let this one talent be taken from him and given to the one who has 10. And for those who already have more will be given, and they shall have an abundance. And for him who has nothing, even what he seems to have will be taken from him. Let that useless servant be cast into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And so when I was preparing, and studying for this, preparing for this tonight, I was very curious about this idea of outer darkness, right? And there's many different schools of Christian thought about this outer darkness. But there seems to be an agreement that this outer darkness, this is not like hell or like purgatory or anything like that. It's basically where we miss out on light by choice. Outer darkness is something that we choose. Even though it says cast into outer darkness, it's really some place that we walk by choice. We cast ourselves there. When we're not spreading that love, right? When we're not spreading, scattering love, like Fenelon urged us earlier, we're not scattering love of God, love of our neighbors. We're not scattering joy. We're not scattering our wisdom and the love of learning. We're still scattering, but what is it, right? We're either scattering light and love and we get more of it, or we're scattering darkness, which puts us in that outer darkness where we're missing out on the light by choice. And that gnashing of teeth is simply extreme sorrow, extreme sadness for realizing I made the wrong choice, right? And the beautiful thing is when we realize that we have not made a good choice, when we are experiencing the consequences of a bad choice, guess what's always there? The opportunity to make a different choice. Anytime we choose darkness and land there and we don't like it, we can choose light again. We can reach into our hearts. We can pray and ask for the strength to resign ourselves to the decision that we've made and to strengthen us to choose love and reach into our hearts and begin to spread love again. It's up to us. We have the choice. We always have this choice. And we also have this opportunity to look within ourselves and think about, well, what talents do we have, right? We've got, and on the physical level, this is just a few. We have far more physical talents that are listed here. This is just a short list to get us thinking about it, right? But we've got our body. We have whatever money we have. We have our family and friends, and illness or health. Either one is a gift. All right. Some of you may be thinking, why is illness up there as a talent or as a gift? That's a gift. Because for many of us, one illness may be saving us from a bigger illness or may be protecting us from a major temptation. I remember reading in the book Better Days by the Spirit Joseph, where he said that you pray for healing, but the sickness that you have might be requiring you to take medicine. That means that you can't drink the alcohol that you were overindulging in and couldn't stop drinking. Right? So there's so many times where illness is a gift for us if we are aware of the spiritual laws in place. But illness or health, employment, school, many, many other physical gifts we have, right? And then we also have many spiritual gifts, right? Now we're back to those those qualities of the soul, right? Intelligence, moral qualities. But we also have skills, knowledge, vocation, and gifts. And I once heard, one of my, a respected colleague at the organization I work with often talks about the difference between gifts and talents. And in this person's perspective, a gift is something you are born with that you don't have to work to be good at. So some of us are born with a natural gift for playing the piano, or a natural gift for sports, or a natural gift for art, right? Whereas other people may be interested in languages or sports or art or playing the piano, but they have to work really hard to build it. Then that's like according to this person, then that's like a talent. That's something that you actually have to work at. regardless of whether the talent or the gift is what you were born with both of them, even the person who's born a good artist, or who's born playing the piano well, or who was born good at sports, in order to really perfect the craft, is still practice, right? So for us, even though we may have gifts, we may have talents, we have also these physical gifts, right? Each one of these, our body, our money, our family, and whatever else you would add to this list. All of these require time to cultivate them. And how we distribute that time, if we spend 90% of our time cultivating the physical list and only 10% on the spiritual, we're going to have a very empty bag when it's time to drop this body and re-enter the spiritual realm. If we spend half of our time on the physical, half of the time on the spiritual, the bag may be a different size. I'm not here to tell any of us how much time we should spend in each one. My invitation to you and me, collectively, this invitation is for us to think about what's the most important use of our time and what's the most spiritually healthy distribution of the attention that we give our lives to each of these two areas. And an exercise that we could think about is for us to take an inventory of ourselves, because, we're so quick to inventory everybody else. But what about us? What gifts do we have that aren't on this list? We're so quick to inventory what everybody else is missing. What are we think we're missing? What do we think we have? This is a good thing for us to reflect on. And I remember hearing a story about a closet that we all have within us. To imagine a closet, that we would open this closet door, and inside there's all these beautifully wrapped gifts. And they represent the things that we actually were born with. But we know that if we open the gift, we actually have to do something with that talent that we find inside of that box. Many of us know this, so we don't ever go in the closet, right? Because if we don't know the gifts that we have, then now we're no longer responsible for using them. But what if in our prayers we ask God to show us, ask our guardian angel to be with us, to show us what our natural gifts are, and to give us the strength to use them? What would happen as we do this inventory? This is for us to think about. So the meaning of this message from the meaning also from the parable is to those who already have more will be given, because having conquered, he or she receives more for their effort in doing good. And the ones that do good with their talents are recognized for their merit. This is a picture of Mother Teresa receiving the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979. And the ones that don't make good use of their talents receive the consequences of that action. Now, does this mean that you make use of your talents and you're going to win the Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize? Maybe, maybe not, right? Probably that remains to be seen, as Mother Teresa was a highly elevated spirit. But as we have seen, for those of us that work in the workplace, that when we can be trusted with a little, more is given to us. And when we don't make good use of the gifts that we have, there are consequences, right? And it's for us to think about, what will we do with those gifts? And then when we think about, the inequality of riches, right? So why are some people wealthy and some people are not? Why is there extreme poverty in some places and then wealth in others? What's the purpose of that inequitable distribution of wealth? And the answer we get here is that because we're not all equally intelligent. We're not all equally active and industrious enough to acquire wealth, or to be moderate and foresightful enough to preserve it. Right? And also, this inequitable distribution is a social program of God for the moral experience and transformation of man and woman. Because wealth is a trial, right? And poverty is a trial. And over successive lives, we've had both. And based on how we have evolved and the choices that we made, and if we think about the previous slides, how much time we spent cultivating the physical aspect of it versus the spiritual aspect of it. And did we make good use of that wealth, then determines how we have successive incarnations. And as it says here, each one of us is going to own wealth at the appropriate time throughout the number of our physical existences. And the trials of poverty and wealth, we can think about it like this, right? That poverty offers the trial of patience and resignation, right? And because, in divine law, there's no privilege, right? There's no favors. The divine law is absolute. All inhabitants of this earth, we have to evolve ourselves. And we experience in every incarnation the exact experience that is in direct proportion to our capacity and to the direct proportion to our degree of spiritual evolution and in direct proportion to our capacity to love. Because over it all, love is the key that unlocks the door when we can't find our way, right? That's always the way. And wealth itself is a trial of charity and abnegation, right? So that's, again, how much love will we inject in our use of wealth? And when we are stewards of wealth, what will we do? Because without the law of reincarnation, right, the inequality of wealth has no explanation given God's love, wisdom, and justice. Because let's be clear, God doesn't love the wealthy more than the poverty, more than the poor. People who are wealthy are really no more wise than people who are poor. People who are wealthy are not recipients or administrators of justice more than the poor. There's no favoritism. So whatever position we occupy in the spectrum of wealth or poverty is due to the trials that we have chosen based on our current level of spiritual evolution. So the time is now for us to remember that earlier warning about guarding against avarice, that being envious, being greedy for wealth, and being envious of those who have it is a waste of time. It's better that we spend our time building those qualities of the soul, of wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, moral qualities, skills, knowledge, vocations, gifts. It's better that we spend our time here. So what about if wealth were equally distributed, right? Would poverty cease to exist? And the answer is no, right? Each person would have a minimal and insufficient portion, and the equitable distribution would be temporary, right? Just like the talent, some would augment it, right? Some would bury it, but most would spend it on the satisfaction of their material needs and desires. And in no time at all, the unequal distribution of wealth would return. And fair distribution will only be possible when we as human beings are guided by charity, and that when we exterminate pride and selfishness from our hearts. And let's face it, we're not there yet, right? So this is not an example of God's injustice that wealth is inequitably distributed. We learned that already, but it's worth asking this question, right? What would that be the answer to the end of poverty? And the answer is no. And the better question I think for us to think about then is, what about detachment from earthly possessions? Because that now, if we think about the earlier questions we asked with spending time cultivating the soul, or spending time as we look around our spaces, spending time cultivating our earthly possessions. If we're to detach, this would consist of several things. One is appreciating wealth for its true worth, which is knowing how to use it for others and not only for oneself. That's reaching in to that bucket of love within us and spreading that around, right? Instead of trying to take as much as we can and hide it in that barn like the rich man. And also we detach from earthly possessions, by sacrificing our self-interest in the future life on its behalf, right? And being willing to lose earthly possessions without complaining if it pleases God to take it away. You know, that losing it without complaining, that complaining thing is a trial for many of us. That's another thing we've been talking about in the Saturday study is, you know, some of us, we complain about how other people complain, not realizing we're falling in exactly the same trap. We're judging others by the very same thing that we're doing. It's that, you know, removing the speck from someone else's island while we have a plank in our own. Yeah, something for us to think about. And also we detach when we know how to be content with little. And if we're poor, don't envy the rich, because wealth is not necessary for happiness, which we learned earlier. And if you are rich, do not forget that your possessions have been entrusted to you and that you must justify their use. What if we had to do that tonight? Many of us on this meeting tonight, we have varying degrees of wealth. Our families have varying degrees of wealth. We all have different salaries if we're working. We all have access to a different level of wealth. But what if we had to account for it tonight? What if we had to justify what we've been spending our money on? Would we feel comfortable doing that? And if not, what opportunity to change that do we have? What have we learned on tonight that might change the way that we use this temporary gift, this loan of resources that has been offered to us to administer, what would we do with it? The answer is up to us. We have a message here from Andre Luis from Living the Gospel, and he lists several beautiful spiritual qualities of the soul, right? And interestingly, as how they're paired, right? Benevolence and humility, love and charity, faith and honesty, hope and forgiveness. Each one of these, just one, is like a whole lecture. It's a whole lifetime of learning, right? But if we think about building these, kindness and patience, where could we show kindness and patience just tonight, right? Peace and discipline, compassion and fraternity, perseverance and tolerance, understanding and courage. These riches are divine talents that the gospel makes available to everyone for investment in moral transformation. Think about that. Each one of these is an investment in moral transformation. Remember that parable of the talents, the one that had 5 and invested them and got 10. The one that had 2 invested them and got 4. And what Andre Luis is telling us here is that if we apply each of these riches of the soul in everyday life without fear of losing them in contact with the difficulties of the way, like the one who only had 1 and buried it because he was afraid of losing it or being ridiculed for using it. Andre Luis tells us because even one of those talents kept in the safe of comfort is always a certain loss in the accounting of spiritual evolution. So this is the end of our lecture tonight, and I wanted to just pause and see if anyone had any questions or thoughts or anything you wanted to share before we go on to the passage. Anyone?
Hi, Cara. I just want to say thank you very much for the for the tonight's talk. It was great, very good explanation about the gospel according to the Spiritism, chapter 16. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Rafael.
Yes, Cara, this was an amazing lesson. Those types of lessons that I will probably take a week or more to digest everything that you said in here, but it was just like a powerful message after another powerful message. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Andriana.
Definitely brought us like some good reflections that we can carry with us and work throughout the week, like you said. And thank you, Karen. That was great.
Thank you, Anna. All right, so I'd like to invite everyone to make sure you have some water nearby or get your glass of water now as we prepare for the passage treatment, which will be led by Andriana.
Let us now take a moment for a meditation to calm down and go inside of ourselves, to receive the blessings of the passes. Place a jar of water close to you, for you and your family. This water will be magnetized. We begin the pass by breathing slowly and deeply, relaxing body and mind. Let go of your worries and thoughts for a moment. We raise our thoughts to Jesus by tuning in with the good spiritual friends. Let's put ourselves in prayer. Ask God, our Father, for the presence of the guardian angel and friendly spirits by your side in this moment. We ask them to assist all the homes here represented. We ask God to allow us to receive healing rays for all physical body ailments, stopping any action of infirmities through the application of vibrations of rays of light throughout our being. We now proceed to the dispersion pass.
Let's imagine a crystal clear water falling over us, full of blessings, involving our whole body, removing all the negative energy, thoughts, and feelings, penetrating and involving our entire body, organs, cells, and our centers of force, restoring our energies, detaching ourselves from all hurt and anger, nervous tensions, guilt, sadness, and frustrations, afflictions, and anxiety. Allow the action of this cleansing by putting all your difficulties and sensations in the hands of the emissaries of Christ. We feel ourselves spiritually clean. Involve in this moment the entire environment of your home, opening the doors to cleanliness and releasing all feelings of selfishness and possession. May this water clean the spiritual environment of our home from all forms of ill thoughts and feelings that may disharmonize ourselves and our family members. Dear God, embrace our hearts, giving everyone good intuitions and free us from all evil. Thank God. We now proceed to the replenishing path. After cleaning, feeling light and happy to be free, we start the strengthening phase, restoring all our energies. Let the light of love fall upon us by rays of restoration of our whole being, helping us re-energize both morally and spiritually. Visualize the team of spiritual doctors around your physical and spiritual body, receiving lights that provide beneficial and strengthening energies. Through breathing, through the pores of your body, and through your mental thoughts, strengthening your immune systems, restoring to balance all of your organic activities, bringing encouragement and well-being to your body. Let's thank Jesus and the whole team of good spirits, asking for this light of healing and blessings for all humanity, and involving all the sick and distressed for the trials of the earth at this time. Let us unite our thoughts of love and be an instrument of support so that good spirits can act on everyone who needs it. Pass in the name of Jesus. At this moment, we imagine the hospitals and everyone there receiving this healing support, the homes of the sick and those who remain silent, still feeding the action of this disease. We know that God acts in all of us. May His will be done. May the water that we set on our table now be blessed by the hands of our good spiritual brothers, workers of Christ, bringing all the benefits to our spiritual and physical bodies. Thank you, God. Now serve this water for your family during the week. Keep these rays and vibrations of light. Continue to act on your mental and spiritual and physical body.
Thank you, Andriata. Can you say a closing prayer for us as well?
Sure. Let's enjoy this moment where we all feel so relaxed and re-energized to be thankful for this lesson and to ask God that we may enjoy this lesson, enjoy all the teachings, and really think about them and really try to practice them, to put them in practice in our daily lives. May we all be the emissaries of God, be their instrument by loving our neighbors, by being more charitable, by being kind with those who live in our houses, with those who we work with, so we can all live in a better place so we can all work not only for our progress, but for the progress of our community, for the progress of Earth. May we all go in peace and have a beautiful and restful week. So be it.